I'd like to introduce you to John Smart. Oh, first of all, I like to tell the people sitting on the floor there are more chairs coming. I'd say about 5 minutes. When the back of the room filled up, all the good church people who came in the front row should lay out really well. But when the back of the room filled up, I'm going to have some more chairs. Anyhow, the presenter this morning is John Smart, and I've always really admired John's name because it's the kind of name we'd all like to have. And that's his middle name. He's got another last name, but he wisely dropped it. I know that also. John's president of Acceleration Studies Foundation. He's the curator of the popular Accelerating Change conferences that ran from 2003 to 2005. He's the co-founder of the Evo Universe Complex Systems Research Community, which if he hadn't already been talking to you, I would have asked him what that was so I could explain it to you, so you can explain it when you get up there. And he's also co-founder of the Foresight Education Research Network. Future Study and Forecasting Advisor at Singularity University. Singularity University is the organization founded about 6 years ago by Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. It's housed at NASA in Ames, which is Mountain View, California, and it picks the 80, each year for 10 weeks, the 80 smartest people that they can find in the world, who are recent graduates who are in their 20s, to get exposed to the leading research that's going on in the universities and also in the startup environment that exists out in Silicon Valley. The goal being to have these people that are smart and young get to know each other so they build a network, but also get to understand these emerging technologies, so John's going to talk about. He's a lecturer at the Navy Postgraduate School in Leadership and Technology Change, and he's a member of the Association of Professional Futurists in Mountain View, California. And so my offer to you, and so here's John, and my offer to you is I'll switch your slides.
Oh, I got my little clicker. Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So let's go through some slides. Now, I had a handout for this. It was called Leadership of Technology Change, the same title as this, but that handout is available on the web. And here's the phrase you Google: 10 areas of technological change. 10 areas of technological change. And you'll see my calling card, basically. What I think is going to come. What I think is possible, probable, and preferable are 3 Ps, which we discussed earlier, in these 10 areas of technology. And I hope we can have more fun discussion like we started with at the beginning, since they gave us a half an hour of leeway time at the beginning. It was great. But let's try and get through these slides. There's 35 slides. And these slides, by the way, you can see in yellow there, will be available tomorrow. There's another version that I've done for defense clients up there now, but this version will be up there tomorrow at accelerating.org/slides. Okay, that's my website. Okay, so subtitle is 10 areas of strategic disruption, opportunity, and threat. We know the disruptions are coming. The question is, what are the opportunities and the threats of those? Okay? So, like Jack said, I run this, I'm the co-founder of the FERN, Foresight Education and Research Network. Susan Fant is the current executive director, super dynamic person. And what we do is we network up to 22 universities and the 6 places where you can get 22 universities where you can get a master's or a PhD, and the 6 places where you can get a certificate in foresight. And I strongly recommend everybody start with a certificate, or just go right to the master's if you're interested, if you're really interested in foresight. The nice thing about the certificates is they're not too expensive, they don't take too long, and you start immediately thinking of yourself like a professional futurist. You're meeting all these other cool people who are taking this stuff seriously, and you just raise the game bit. So let me pitch that real strongly. And then we have a directory, globalforesight.org, of cool foresight resources, and you can all edit it and add stuff to it. Okay. All right, so we have to start with a theory of change. Now, I'm a founder of the Acceleration Studies Foundation. What's that? Well, that is a tiny nonprofit. I started in 2003, 10 years ago, to look at accelerating change. What's accelerating change? Things going faster every year. What things go faster every year? Well, communications technologies, computing technologies, and nanotechnologies. Those are the big three. Now, the interesting thing is those technologies, those big three, have gone faster every year for entire human civilization. In fact, you can define a human being as the first organism that picks up a piece of technology, we think it was a rock or a club, and works together in a group to defend itself from other things that are bigger, stronger, faster, more powerful. If you look at Australopithecus, which couldn't pick up rocks and flake them, there's little holes in the top of their head that perfectly fit the teeth of the leopards that used to eat them. He'd drag them away just like a cat drags away a mouse. And then Homo habilis wakes up and you see he's got this rock in his hand, and all of a sudden there's 100,000 flaked rocks next to the Oldowan Gorge, next to a lake in the Oldowan Gorge. Somebody's doing an assembly line for flaking rocks and giving them out to everybody else. And all these guys are getting together as a group. And that leopard, yeah, maybe he can take the weak guy that's over in the corner. But when he tries to come in to the group, what do, man? We pick up those rocks and we throw them at 90 miles an hour with our opposable thumbs, and we beam that guy before he even gets in here. Not just one of us, but 10 of us. From that point forward, we're just sitting around the campfire, synchronizing our squeaks, right, inventing language, figuring out ways to make those rocks smaller, stick them on the ends of sticks. Neanderthals had spears, right? Different species of human. But it's a human. It's a creature that takes technology and uses it to do what? Become something more than their biological self. What if I just sold you on it? Sold you on the idea that this acceleration is kind of baked into the physics of the universe, isn't it? Is that porting our intelligence from chemistry to biology to technology, or to culture and to technologies, this is kind of part of how the system works. And for some reason, the further we push it into this technology, specifically into smaller technologies and communications technologies and computing technologies, as soon as we can figure out how to take those squeaks and put them on pieces of paper and then order the level of which papers go to the top, well, we have a paper computer. So we figure out how to store those symbols into an abacus and start flipping them around, and we're computing. And what we're doing is we make those technologies smaller and smaller. Now, we make the computing faster and faster. We make the communications quicker and quicker. And that whole thing keeps accelerating. How long can it keep accelerating? Well, in 2003, I asked myself, well, I'd like to know how long can it keep accelerating. I mean, because if it does keep accelerating, I think that's kind of a key thing to understand about the universe. So, and as far as we can tell, it's going to keep accelerating. Research physicists, as far out as we can see, which is a long way out, we don't see any limits. There are universal limits, things like a Planck scale. We're nowhere near those limits. We're just fiddling around, fat-fingered 21st century human beings making 7-qubit quantum computers. What? Taking neutrinos and communicating through solid Earth with them. Remember our grandparents had things like telegraphs? We have neutrino telegraphs. So there's, of course, the financial guys and the Navy sub guys want to use these neutrino communication systems to communicate to their subs under the water, and the financial guys want to lower the latency of their algorithmic trading systems so they can beat everybody else out and get that trade that much faster, using a neutrino communication system through the middle of the Earth. What? Welcome to the 21st century, man. And neutrinos are, I think, 5 orders of magnitude smaller than electrons. How can we even manipulate those things? For some reason, the universe allows it. So the nano's going to keep going, the computation's going to keep going, the communication's going to keep going, and it's really interesting, isn't it? This future, the time that we're living in, it's really interesting. All right. So here's my theory. And There's about 65 of us that are complex systems folks that are really interested in this idea that the universe uses these three things. Now, you notice how I prepped you? Possible, probable, and preferable. The possible is the evolutionary feature. Evolution has no idea what's going to happen. It just throws crap at the wall and sees what sticks. 2, 3, 4, 6, 5 fingers, arms. Skinks have 3 eyes. They have a little vestigial eye. You can see it. It's got a scale over it. And then on the other side is optimization, development. How many eyes are optimum for a bipedal organism on the planet? Well, bipedal, I gave it away, didn't I? 2. The reason why is we have depth perception. You need 2 for depth, 3 is redundant, unnecessary. It might be helpful if you're on your own, because all the predators bring their eyes to the front. All the ones that are being eaten keep their eyes on the side so they can see everything. So the guys that are in the front, they got 2 eyes, and you think, oh, well, somebody can get them from behind, but hey, predators don't work that way. They work in packs, remember? They just need 2 forward-facing eyes to get depth perception. So 2 eyes is a developmental optimum. How many wheels are an optimum for a car on any planet that has power? 4, because you have flat roads. If you didn't have crushed gravel, you might be 6 or whatever, but flat roads always come with cars, don't they? Why? Because a car is just an acceleration device for communication. Remember that C one that we talked about that's continually accelerated? It beats out this in terms of energy density. You can throw a lot more energy through it and move it a lot faster. So there are optima in the universe that continually get figured out. And then there's evolutionary things that just add more variation. And in the middle between those 2, there's selection or computation or complexity or intelligence or whatever you want to call it. So that's the model, okay? And so this is the slide. So basically, evolution is about chance and development is about necessity. And then the mix of those 2 is utility or computation, adaptation, selection, right? And so the cool thing about change is you can see 2 fundamental, if there's 2 fundamental drivers, you can actually see 2 fundamental patterns in all complex systems. You can see trees and funks. So a tree is like the tree of life. There's just more variety over time. Think of all the animals, all the subcultures, all the different, 6,000 languages on the planet right now. And then a funnel on the other side is something that takes the chaos out of the system. What's happening to languages right now? Are we seeing a tree-like or a funnel-like process? Massively funnel-like. English is going to pick up probably 1 billion new speakers in the next 25 years. Right? And of course, all the other major languages are going to pick up too, right? But those 6,000 or those 3,000 languages that 10,000 less people speak, those guys are going into the archives, right? Everyone's taking video of them right now, trying to capture as much of that complexity as they can before it disappears, just like the species, right? So there's trees and there's funnels to everything. And the really interesting thing is that most change in the universe is tree-like. It's bottom-up. It's evolutionary. Remember we talked about the 95% as many cameras doing the bottom-up as there are top-down? Well, it turns out that principle seems to be true of all complex systems. All right? All complex systems. So your brain, 95%, your body, 5% of your genes are developmental genes. They determine your life cycle, what you're going to look like, when what your health's going to be like when you're 80, when you're going to die. If you look at 2 genetically identical twins from across the room, the things about them that make them the same are that critical 5% of genes, because they're genetically identical. The other 95% of our genes are evolutionary. They're constantly changing. At 5%, those genes look almost the same as worms' genes. Well, we've added more layers to them. But they very slowly change. They're a critical set that takes the chaos out, keeps the system working, all the immune system genes, anything that keeps the system stable in its replication. That's development. Does that make sense? Whether we're talking psychological, biological, cultural, technological, when you use the D word, you're talking about a funneling-like process that conserves or hits an optimum, like those 4 wheels or the 2 eyes. Okay? And that's only a subset of things, isn't it? Most things don't look like that. They look evolutionary. Almost all of our thoughts are unconscious. 5% of them are, I'm going to make a decision, and then we just start bumping into things, and we end up doing what, the environment suggests to us. And Molodinow's book, Subliminal, about how almost all of your thinking is subliminal, shows you that 95-5 rule. Kevin Kelly's book, Out of Control. Almost all the behaviors, the decisions of actions in an organization, they're totally out of control. People aren't following the rule books. They're just doing what seems right to them. And then you got these, managers on the top saying, hey, no, this is what you should be doing. It's like 5% of the communications, 5% of the decisions, right? It's a tiny critical framework, the developmental thing. You try to get the framework right, but most stuff happens bottom up. And of course, Clay Shirky in how the internet is happening right now. It's this massive bottom-up playground, isn't it? With a few people on the top trying to set the rules. So all the interesting things follow this pattern. Now here's Amara's point that we could say futures are a blend of possible, preferable, and probable. You see the possible, knowledge management, ideation, innovation, all those functions in your organization are on the evolutionary side. On the development side, anybody who's doing forecasting or risk management or prediction, they're on the probable side. That's the way they like to look at the world. These are foresight styles, aren't they? 3 fundamental foresight styles, and we all use them. Some people really love 1 or 2. And then in the middle, the blend is the preferable. All the people doing, the leaders doing their visioning, the strategic planners, the strategy guys, they all have an agenda they're trying to go toward their particular preferable one. They're trying to pull you on board, sell you on it. Right? And it's a really useful model. And so what we can say is the evolutionary people are all about innovating and experimenting. Remember I said the artists and the entrepreneurs are down in that bowl? That's what evolution does. And that's what most of the world is. Right? 95% of the change is all this innovation, experimentation, creative stuff. So innovation studies, of course, extremely important. And finally, we have majors in it. Yay! How long did that take? Okay. And on this side, on the development side, we've got the folks into protecting and predicting. It's very easy to spend too much time and energy on that and overdo that, isn't it? Create something that's too sclerotic and bureaucratic. That 5%, you got to get it just right, don't you? But it's very critical, isn't it, for the system working? And then in the middle, we got the blending, and people who talk about a learning organization like Senji, or adapting, the adaptive organization, another good book. They're all about this, how do I blend the chance and necessity to steer toward what I want, okay? And of course, we can break these up into, like I say here, these are your business school categories, the things you'd learn in an MBA school, right? And you can see I use green for evolution, blue for development, and then purple for kind of preferable. Trick here. So we got the innovation entrepreneurship. That's real important. Like I said, that's 95% of the things, really. We need to be thinking about how to make our world, our country, more entrepreneurial. Right? And then we got the foresight and security folks, and in the middle we got the management and strategy folks. Okay? All right, so now let's get to developmental foresight. So now we're into this area of technology where we're going to talk about those 10 stories that I mentioned. And we're going to talk about them from a developmental perspective. But first, I want you to introduce you to Pierre Wack. How many remember him? Got some folks in the room who remember this guy. Yeah, wonderful guy. 1970s, he was head of Shell Scenario Group. He came up with this beautiful concept called a TINA trend. A TINA trend is a developmental trend in a complex system, like a human society. He said, you know what? There's these things that no matter what we do with our scenarios, we got to understand these TINA trends first, because this is the framework within the box within which our scenarios occur. And so he started listing a few of these things for which there is no alternative. Now, of course, there always is. All these trends go backwards. You can have developmental failures and delays, right? You can have democracy try and pop out before literacy and telephone in Athens. And what happened to that? It didn't last very long against the Spartans. As soon as you got literacy and telephones, though, what happens to democracy? It's developmental. At least that's the argument. That's the TINA trend argument. Okay? So let's look. I got 10 of them here, and 4 fantastic books that will introduce you to that. Like I say, these slides are accelerating.org/slides, right? So, decreasing average violence. We have increasing war capacity, and that's predictable for all the leading actors. And yet we have increasing regulation of violence at all levels in society. And Pinker's book, Better Angels of Our Nature, 800 pages, the most courageous book of the last 10 years. It totally makes the data. It blows your mind. It shows you on a 1,000-year scale and then on the last 100 years. And it's just so much data. And why is that? Well, he gives about 11 different reasons. We don't really know. We just know it's a TINA trend. What else? There's increasing central government powers versus the individual, increasing democratization and global interdependence. Like I said, you can see these. Increasing individual rights, woman, child, religious, minority, gay rights, you can measure that, you can show it. Increasing social justice and sustainability campaigns, sustainability being considered environmental justice, right? Increasing total energy use on the planet per person, and saturating individual energy use. Isn't that weird? So who's using all the energy? It's the corporations, man. Remember we're talking about them? How they are bigger than the governments now? Right? That's what they do. We let them do it, because so far we're okay with it. Now, should we be? Well, that's an interesting social question. Increasing total wealth and social safety nets and leisure time. And people tell me, John, you're wrong. It's like two income, today. And back in the golden age of the 70s, there was one person working, and so we don't have as much leisure time. We actually do. We have way more. It's all flex time. It's all broken up into little bits. And Herman Kahn was the first to nail this trend in the year 2000 report in 1968. He totally nailed it. We have all these things. We have increasing total information, computing, and communication on the planet. That was what we started with, remember? And increasing biological capacities, lifelike abilities of our technology. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? We can measure that too. And increasing, this is my World Future Society talk 2 years ago. Increasing space, time, energy, and matter, density and efficiency of technology. What does that mean? Density. That means things go faster, time density. Space density, things get closer together that are important. That's the nanotech, right? Increasing energy density, more energy channeling through a smaller space. And that's, we've just seen it throughout the entire human history. Okay? We don't know why. That's what's happening. And to me, that's the most interesting, the last one. Because what it suggests is we're heading towards our entire planet, the crazy thing I said 2 years ago, is our entire planet is heading towards something that looks more and more like AY. Like a black hole. In 2000, the ultimate laptop, Seth Lloyd said the ultimate computing system is something that looks so dense and concentrated, it's almost like left the universe. Yeah, inner space, that's where intelligence goes. Weird, I don't know why, but it's a fantastic Tina trend to look at. And we've got these great books, and the last book has the terrible name of Infinite Progress by Byron Reese, head of Demand Media. I don't know who he had writing this book, but it's a brilliant book. Terrible name and brilliant book. Subtitle, How the Internet and Technology Are Ending Ignorance, Disease, Poverty, Hunger, War. It's one of those highly optimistic future books. And most of those you kind of kick to the curb because the arguments are so juvenile. This is the one to read. Okay? I really recommend it. I'm going to pass it around. Don't steal it, okay? Again, I got some notes in it. It's a lovely book. All right. So here's our 10 areas of tech change. I told you nanotech and infotech are special, didn't I? That's why I got them in blue. They're the things that are driving the acceleration. And we've got these other areas which we're going to get to. Okay? Oh, and that there's a little plane that is launched off of a ship called Scan Eagle, a little drone, automated drone. And when the way this thing lands, they have to hook it with this little long pole. It flies by the ship, Navy ship, and they try and hook it. How many people think those things are going to be landing like birds, like seagulls, and throw their wings out? How many people think that's coming next? Absolutely, because remember my Tina trend here, technology, increasing biological capacities of tech. In fact, there's even one Besto was made that's like kind of a seagull robot that flaps around. So, can you? Yeah. So these things are predictable, aren't they? They're statistically predictable. We know they're coming. We don't know exactly when, but it's really fun. So here's my crazy slide. Everyone's got to have one. Here's mine. So nano science and nanotech are the engine of accelerating change. Intelligence keeps heading to physical inner space. And infotech and simulation is the virtual inner space that we're heading towards. As kids, how much time do you think you spent playing with things? What do you get? Hours, right? Hours in a typical day, playing in unpredictable ways. As adults, how much time, this is great Harvard study like 5 years ago, how much time do we spend doing unpredictable things in physical space as adults, like 21 and on? It's minutes, isn't it? It's like 15 minutes. Okay, I got 3 ways to go home. I'll pick one of my 3 routes. Some little robots will take me there and I'll wake up. How the heck did I get here? We don't play in physical space. Does that mean we're dead? No. What does it mean? Where are we playing? Yeah. That's how it works. As soon as you're old enough that you've played with the blocks enough that you've uploaded the prims into your head, you just start playing out there in virtual land, man. And guess what? That's what our computers are learning to do. They're going from physical to virtual space, too. They're figuring out how to do more and more steering, if you will, in this virtual world. So the physical and the virtual interspace is where things go, okay? So as leaders, we need to use the strongest levers, the 2 that are moving the world, nanotech and infotech, and we got to mind the hype. Because all this stuff, if you're human, we're going to hype the crap out of it, try and, get the money before everybody else, right? And this beautiful book, Mastering the Hype Cycle, kind of understands this and talks about these technologies. There's this peak of inflated expectations, and then this trough of disillusionment, and then finally you get to the plateau of productivity. So if you're a leader, you really got to be careful about your team overhyping this crap, and you just overinvest in it early on when it's not ready, rather than continue to support the R&D until it is ready. Artificial intelligence was a joke until 1993. It was mostly government funded. And then commercial money actually outcompeted at that point. And Amazon collaborative filtering, remember that? You bought this book, you might like this book, and then Netflix got in the game, and now we've got IBM Watson and Siri, and whoa, man! So the stuff gets to a point where it flips and it becomes useful. So you really got to watch that, and I really like that book for helping you manage those issues. All right, so now here's our 10 tails. Nano Science. Now notice I've got a little statement in red at the top. Like I said, nano is faster, stronger, and thriftier than human space. Get over it. It always will be. It always will be. That's how the universe is built. We don't know why. But you want to make anything better, you go into the nano. Now, the U.S. spends how much on basic nano R&D? Maybe 3 to 4 billion. Asia spends about the same. Europe spends about the same. So it's less than 10 billion total a year spent on nano. Right? China spends as much on nano as of last year as we do, and they have 1/5 of our GDP. Okay? Because they got a lot of engineers running the country, right? It's like 1950s U.S. Think of it that way. They want bigger tail fins on their Cadillacs, they want nano, and they want nano. We could be doing that. But for some reason, our leaders don't see the power and importance of spending more on this huge lever. Battery energy density, everyone complains about batteries. In 2006, they demonstrated that lithium-air batteries had 50 times better than lithium-ion, which is what we use today. 50 times better. How do you get more than an order of magnitude increase in something? You go to nano. In a human space, Ingmar Kamprad rips the legs off furniture, figures out how to make flat-pack furniture, and he gets 3 times the efficiency. Woo! 300%, 3 times. And he builds a whole empire called IKEA based on that. That's the human scale. That's the kind of efficiencies we get. 100%, 200%, 300%. Nano, what does nano give you? 10, 50, 100. Sometimes a million-fold increase in a single step. We don't know why. It's just how it's built. So my challenge to you is, where would a 5x improvement in efficiency or a 10x improvement in some physical process, sensing, computation, or communication system make the most difference for your team, and how can you get it? How can you get the collective intelligence to find out who's already got it out there? Okay? Those zinc air batteries, right now, as you can see, they are 20 times better. You can go out and buy those today. But you'd have to source them. You have to find out who's making them in an affordable way. It's not going to be here in the U.S. It's going to be some specialty application. How are you going to find them? You're going to get a book like this Sloan's book on open innovation and crowdsourcing. You're going to ask your crowd. Because today we've got crowds that can solve all these problems better than we can ourselves, right? So you got to first realize that you can go out and get that return that's there. And then you got to get the technical intelligence. You got to get the team to go find it. All right, now let's look at infotech. So our big slide, our big sentence here is IT is becoming ubiquitous and brain-like. Those are the two words that I really like, right? It's going everywhere, it's going invisible, disappearing into our body, and it's becoming more and more like a brain, okay? So another lovely book that I recommend is Predictive Analytics by Siegel. I'll pass that around as well. This way. And this is, a big data book. Our Patrick Tucker has one coming out next year, which I can't wait to read. He's a smart cookie, so that's going to be really interesting. But this is the one to read this year. Okay, it's a fantastic book, and it talks about. It's got a beautiful chapter on Watson. Many people saw Watson beat the pants off of the two best Jeopardy champions on the planet in February 2011. Does that blow your mind? I mean, that was a seminal moment. And he talks in his book about how he has done that work, natural language understanding, and he didn't think it was going to be possible. Because in 2006, the very best, there's a competition every year called Trek QA, and the very best programs could answer only the simple Jeopardy questions like, when did James Dean die, and the population of Uganda. They could only answer those about 13%, accuracy. And Watson got 90% accuracy. Remember you saw Miss Toronto? It should have been, Toronto. You thought it was in the U.S., and you go, oh, stupid Watson. And then you look and you realize there's like 15 Toronto U.S.'s, but they're little tiny ones. And he just didn't have that part in his sim that the population size mattered. He thought the number of them was more important. So then you go, oh, bad Watson. Sorry, this is more important. And then you tweak that variable, and then what? Smarter Watson. Brain-like learning, training. Okay? And so between 2006 and 2011, it flipped. And there's a book called Approximately Correct, which tells you how those algorithms work. Our brain works off of those algorithms as well. They're all probably approximately correct. There are, as you can see, 2,800 processors working in parallel, so a $3 million machine. And each of those is assigned a text search method, or a language processing method, or one of the 550 predictor variables they had for the questions. And then you just train Watson on the questions, and then you tweak up or down the weightings of that 750 variable system, like a neural net. You just tweak the weightings up or down. And that's how Watson got to 90% correct, with just 10 million articles from the web. Didn't have any more access like Google to everything. He just has those 10 million. You just keep training them up like a little baby. And of course, that's coming to the web, isn't it? That's coming to our wrist, like we're going to see in just a second. Okay? Right. Engineering technology. Cities and machines are automating and dematerializing. Right? So, Triumph of the City by Glazer, Vertical Farm by Despommier. There's a number of vertical farms out there now. Norway's got several, they're like 15 stories high. Lovely places for community gardens, and how cities can get a lot more sustainable. This book by Zhang on family farms is a fantastic book. See that little robot crab guy sitting there on top? When are family farms coming back? They're coming back just the same time that American, manufacturing comes back. Nike, or how Brooks makes shoes in Massachusetts? Everybody said, what? How can you make shoes again in the United States? With frickin' advanced robots, that's how. So it's more and more the intellectual capital now that starts to beat out the cheap labor. When will family farms again? You can have your little robots out there crawling around. Hold on to your family farm if you have one. See how everything has a kind of a time and it gets worse and then things can get better? And why does it get better? Because automation and machine and brain-like intelligence. What's that little guy? What's the name of that little guy in the far right corner? Anybody know? Yeah, 26 grand. And what can he do? He's the first robot that's designed to work with people. He can do what's called post-harvest automation. So he just put all the apples or whatever it is you put on the conveyor belt, and he just takes them and puts them in the boxes. Right? The guy invented an asparagus cutting robot. It took him 20 years. It's in that book. Okay, $120,000 today. It's going to be, $20,000. John Deere's going to sell it in 10 years, right? Don't cut your asparagus, let your robot and Baxter do it. Isn't that interesting? It's the world. It's the world we're in. Google's robotic cars. Here's the Lit Motors car. Look at that. You seen that? It's got 2 gyros in it, so it sits up perfectly straight. That means it can split between cars because it's a motorcycle. It's being made in San Francisco today. I know the CEO. They've got 2 already that are made. They're going to sell them for 20 grand each. And of course, it's a taxi too, right? So you're sitting in the back, it's Wi-Fi, right? You're splitting all the lanes. Oh, and by the way, it's got airbags all inside of it. But here's the cool part. In the next version, they're going to put 4 airbags on the outside. Remember those Vectran airbags that the Spirit and Opportunity used to land on Mars? 4 times more powerful than Kevlar, this Vectran. So there'll be 1 on the front, 1 on the back, 2 on the sides. That thing's going to be safer than most cars. And getting, over 100 miles per gallon, right? Well, this one's electric, actually, but they'll make a gas version probably, too. So the whole future ends up looking like Leuven, Belgium. Anybody been to Leuven? They got bombed in World War II, so what they do, they put all their parking garages underground in the city center, and they have the hub and spoke ring, so it's the most walkable city in the world, right? So everybody just kind of like zooms in, and, cars go underground, and you elevator up, and now you've got your walkable city. All the cars are going underground, aren't they? Why? Because the robots are digging, aren't they? Tunnel boring machines, which dig these tunnels and these underground parking garages, they're on a Moore's Law curve. They double every 3 years. There's about 9,000 of them on the planet. 3 years from now, there'll be 18,000. These things are mostly automated. Guys sitting on the top, operating like a video machine. As soon as those things have the robocars to take the tailings out at night while we're asleep, we're going to have these things running 24/7 in the cities. Taking our parking garages, all the ugly things we don't want on the surface, dropping them underground, reclaiming some surface real estate. So cities are the future, aren't they? And we can make them vastly more sustainable with engineering. Resource technologies. Energy, water, food, population, all these problems are solving themselves, aren't they? The book Abundance is probably the best single argument for how these things are all solving themselves with ingenuity, but notice the red line. Periodic crises, long-term abundance. We only go for those technological solutions when we get the crisis. You ever heard that phrase, a crisis is a terrible thing to face? So as a leader, you got to have your tech solution, the one that you know that they need to pay for, you got to have it on the shelf, waiting, like Shell with their scenarios. You got to have it waiting for the crisis, and then you drop it down and you say, oh, by the way, this works. Let's put the money up. And that's how we go forward. That's our 2-step, isn't it? Yeah. Water. We might have water scarcity, water geopolitics in the next 15, 20 years possibly. What happens after 20 years to water? It gets so cheap, we start deciding how much desert we want to leave on the planet. That's how cheap it gets. There's 6 different desalination technologies. They're all making progress. Reverse osmosis, forward osmosis, flash distillation, ionic separation. They're all making progress. This is, to me, the coolest. It's basically a bunch of mirrors that focus on seawater at the top of that tower. And Europe's building a few of them in North Africa so that they get free power for Europe and free water for North Africa. So you're getting 2 things at the same time. You're getting the power and you're getting because of course you boil the seawater and you drive the turbine, right? That's called CSP, Concentrated Solar Power Desal. It's brilliant technology. Why are we not building it today? We got too damn much water. It's too cheap. The percentage of water humans have access to is 3% of the total fresh water. It's a massive amount of it out there. I'm just talking about fresh water. And then there's all of the seawater. So all these resources, they are quite available to us. The interesting question is, how do we drive ourselves toward a more sustainable resource use? This book, One Report by Eccles, is my favorite. As a leader, I highly recommend this book for your corporate reporting. So it's the triple bottom line, remember, the planet, people, profit. But what's the 4th one that Eccles, that these new guys are adding now? Governance. So you need environmental impact, you need economic impact, you need social impact, and you need governance. Because most of these big corps, are they democratic? Who elected you, buddy? Right? This is a serious governance revolution that we're going to see coming. Now, what are the countries that, as futurists, we say are always 20 years ahead of us? Look to Scandinavia. Look to Germany. For many things, look to Switzerland and Singapore. You see the future. You see countries that treat their social safety nets a lot more importantly, that have serious reporting on all these, and have real kick-ass technical infrastructure, and a lot of people who know how to use technology, right? And great educational systems and great healthcare. We'll get there, but we value other things like freedom more. So we take our own independent path to that world. But if you think that world is a developmental world, as I do, well, we'll get to that. And like amine scrubbers for CO2 capture, the Norwegians, since last year, are demonstrating how you make natural gas ridiculously clean if you want to. It's a 20 to 30% energy cost. So nobody wants to run them unless the government does what? Says, hey, you got to have them, like what? Seat belts, anti-lock brakes, right? We can go on. So we have to decide, and then we're willing to pay that cost. And that 20 to 30% energy cost, of course, is going to get a lot cheaper the smarter we get on the nanotech side, right? Right now, the way they capture and take that out and compress it, it's all very primitive first-gen stuff. Cognitive technologies, the fun stuff. So like I said, I'm getting glass in a week or two. I'm excited. But this is the one I'm really excited about, a wrist phone. That's where I want the thing. I don't want to look like a freaky cyborg. I just want to get that phone out of my pocket, man. I just want to be able to go like this and take a picture and see it and frame it and be able to look down. But what is the kid learning Twi in Ghana, which is one of the local dialects spoken by just a couple million people, right? When they learn that Twi word, they're going to look down at their wrist in 10 years, and those things, they're going to have them in 10 years. Why? Because Malaysia gave out 2 million netbooks this year for free, because they want their kids to basically have this platform. And Google and Microsoft, they're still in the game, and Apple and everybody is going to be giving theirs out for free because they're making location-based ads, revenues on the side. That's going to be your little waterproof wearable wrist PC. The kid who's got the one wrist PC per child, if I may borrow that from Nicholas, in 10 years or less, hopefully 8, right? They learn the Twi word, they're going to look down, and what are they going to see? They're going to see the English language or German or whatever other language they want word for that as well. Rosetta Stone is now free to memorize in Duolingo. But it needs to be free and on your wrist, doesn't it? As you're learning it as a kid, you're sponging it up when you're 2 or 3, like these kids who are iPad warriors who are 2 years old. Those kids who are going to get plugged into our entire culture, they're going to see all the cargo we have, and if they aren't able to get some of that cargo, what are they going to do? You think Arab Spring is, big. They're going to start protesting in very creative ways because they're all going to be able to easily find each other. And why are they going to be able to do that? They're going to be able to do that because, and I work for this company, Next IT. I'm a technical advisor, and they make those little virtual assistants. You ever talk to Jen, the Alaska Airlines, the schedule? We think those agents are going to get a lot smarter. I want you to picture a world in 2030, like about democracy. You're reaching for a can of tuna. And your little agent, sitting in the corner, whispers in your ear, or shows you a little green arrow on your augmented reality glasses or whatever, and you move your hands a couple inches and you go from bumblebee to chicken of the sea. You don't know why. You're lazy. But I want to ask. Okay, I'm bored, I'm sitting in line. Why did I get chicken of the sea? Oh, bumblebees' mercury levels are still too high, and this group that you subscribe to, their values say, punish bumblebee until they do XYZ thing. I know you didn't want to know that, but that's basically what you're doing. Wow, that's the value cosmos. That's a world where all the values are out there, they're mapped, and your twins, your digital twins, have a values map, a primitive values map of you because they understand all that natural language. Remember Watson? They've looked at all the email that you've ever written. Everyone who's got email as a blogger doesn't know. Huh? They looked at all of that stuff and they started matching up other people that have similar interests to you. You think Google's going to launch something that's going to allow you to meet other people that want to start the same business you're thinking about starting without looking at each other's email? The machine does all of that. Do you think the kids are going to want that feature turned on or off? Now, as adults, we might be creeped out by it. Kids are going to say, full speed ahead, man, let's just see what happens. That's how the kids do it. So I'm talking about machines getting a lot more brain-like, aren't I? Very interesting world. If you want to reform education, look at what Finland did. They threw out half their curriculum and replaced it with what? Nothing. Read the book or see the DVD Finland phenomenon. So the kids get freedom the other half of the time. It's a Montessori education system, put it for the mixed Montessori, for the whole country. So those kids, if they don't pass the 50% state standards they have to pass, they don't get the freedom. They don't get to go to the cool, shop or crafts or whatever room. They got to sit in remedial class, right? So how seriously do they treat those standards, do you think? How incentivized are they by that freedom? What do you think? They're so seriously incentivized, they went from 15th in the country, in the world, to #1 in the world in STEM and civics. And this has happened over the last 15, 20 years, and Finland phenomenon tells you how it happened. So as leaders, this isn't just how we're going to fix our education system. We finally decide to look at the data, okay, and decide to finally give kids the freedom half the time that they need for that evolutionary side. Remember, the standards are the developmental side, aren't they? Well, we want them to optimize too. You don't give them enough evolutionary time, they're just going to check out, man. They're not going to become that cool, unique artist or whatever that they want to do. But I think we will fix it, and it's exciting to see. So as leaders, if you've got people under your, who are direct reports, how much of their time do you want doing the stuff that you tell them to do? Pretty obvious you don't want more than half of the time, right? They're going to start checking out, man. You want to make them responsible to surprise you, just like you do with your kids. Right? That's the best instruction, isn't it? Hey, go out and surprise me. And here's the free time to do that. Here's your mandate, but within this whole space, what can you do that's going to be interesting and creative and that's going to move the ball forward? And if you have that, if you give your direct reports that kind of time, they'll be a lot more productive. Social technologies, the values mapped web. So we're getting close now. We've got 6 minutes and we've got 4 slides left. Think we'll get them done? Good, all right. Okay, so I talked about this values mapped web. I want to kind of blow your mind a little bit. For 60 years, Engelhardt at Princeton and Wellsville now works with him, younger guy, has been mapping social values and how they change developmentally. He thinks there are these developmental inevitabilities. Remember the teeter trends? And he's got this axis. If you Google Engelhardt cultural, just Google World Cultural Values Map, and you'll find the big picture version of this. And what you see is basically 2 axes. Freedom on one side, personal freedom. Remember that evolutionary drive? And evidence-based behavior on the other side. Remember that developmental drive? You want to know what's predictable? You want the real evidence behind it? These are the 2 fundamental drives that he sees in culture. And who's in the upper right corner, way the heck out there? Which democracies did I say that we should be looking at as the future? Scandinavia, baby. That's it. And Norway, Scandinavia. They're way up there in the upper. Huge evidence-based behavior in all their policy, all the personal decisions people make, and a lot of freedom from birth, right? Where's the United States on that? We're pegged on freedom. We got the maximum. Where are we on evidence-based? We're only halfway up. How about China? Where are they? Where are they on evidence-based? They're pegged. They're almost all the way up. They're up. See the Confucian one, the light orange. But where are they on personal freedom? Most of them. I think maybe. I forget which one that's up there, a little more free, but most of them are only halfway out of freedom. There's a whole lot of state control, way too much. Right? And is this developmental? Is this a funnel? Are all the little units taking their random walk unpredictably 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, but they all eventually go through the funnel? Well, Engelhardt thinks so. That's a very interesting trend, isn't it, as a futurist to follow? That's a Tina trend, potentially, isn't it? So we track it, we do the surveys, and we ask. So now I want to ask you, we talked about a values mapped web where you can find other people that have your values and do a lot of protests, do a lot of change that you can't do today. What's a group net? Well, a group net, like I said before we started, is basically a world where the kind of connectivity is now so cheap that you're just connected up to a whole bunch of people who share your values and who are trying to do the same, whatever, say they're kids and they want to grow up. So Scott Page in the book The Difference, 2008, has shown that for hard problems, cognitive diversity crushes specialization. For very well-defined problems, you just want the specialist, you don't need any diversity. You know, the physicist, the operations research guy or gal, you just want that person who has that skill, and you just plug it in, it's just, hammer and nail. But almost every problem is not like that, is it? Those are the developmental problems that I mentioned, remember? The 5%? 95% of them are hard. And for those problems, you need, as Scott said, cognitive difference. And he has all this data. He's a complex systems researcher from the University of Michigan. And the difference gives you just data after data that cognitively diverse teams, cognitively diverse families, cognitively diverse schools, cognitively diverse countries outcompete ones that are not cognitively diverse. How do you get cognitive diversity? Well, you measure it. There's all these different measures for it. StrengthsFinder's got 34 different strengths if you've done the StrengthsFinder test. Right? You make sure I've got a strengths diverse team, and if I don't, I can get somebody in who has those skills. And as a leader, I can actually look at a couple of those strengths and I can say, oh, that's not a strength. And I belittle it until I read the little description and I go, wait a minute, it actually is. Oh, I actually had problems before that. I'd love to find somebody who has that strength and push it to them. So the book Strengths-Based Leadership is a fantastic follow-on to The Difference if you want the power combo. And of course, StrengthsFinder, taking the $14 StrengthsFinder test online and figuring out what your top 5 strengths of the 32 workplace strengths that Gallup discovered by polling millions of people. Now 34. Now, is it 34 or 32? 34. Now, there's probably more than that, right? That's just the ones they discovered. But it's a great place to start. So that's cognitive diversity. So now let's ask the tough question. Why are group nets going to help criminals and the mentally ill? Like I said, there's 50 times more normals than those who need help. Think about it. Imagine like in Norway where they let the prisoners out for a year or two on the weekends beforehand to see if they behave. If they don't behave, they put them back in longer. Imagine if we had something that was structured to get people who need help in with the normals. The prisoners weren't able to talk to each other in this future. They just talked to a bunch of normals. How much would you start shifting their brain back into thinking? How many do-gooder normals are there out there? Just about everybody who's retired would love to help out some kid who needs help in juvie, or somebody who's in a prison, and you read their little rap sheet and you say, hey, I think that was a pretty lame reason for you to go to prison. I'd like to kind of help keep all of your systems working well just by chatting with you every day on my group net. Flip down my little screen. I'm, haggling for something in Greece, and everyone who's in my group is also noticing, and they ask me to buy stuff for them. I'm having an experience with them, and I can't remember whether I had it or whether my person in my group had it. That's called a symbiont moment, where you are so symbiotic with other people that you just fuse with them. Is that freaky? Some of the kids are having symbiont moments today just with crap like Facebook, right? You know how primitive that is. Imagine how much higher that level is going to be, and there's a lot of great potential. There's a lot of potential for abuse here, isn't there? Create little echo chambers, people who just talk to each other and have no cognitive diversity. What would Scott Page say if you got into your echo chamber and you just start, consuming crap that fits your particular bias? What would he say would happen to you for all the hard problems? You're just getting out-competed by the cognitively diverse teams, right? So there's actually some evidence for how to do these groups well, and they're a very exciting thing that I think are really going to help us as we go into this world that's more virtual, more connected, higher level of computation. All right, we're getting close. 7, health. 2 great things you need to know about health is that quantified and group net and digital health are really the things that are going to go forward. You think like all this crazy new molecular medicine is going to happen? It's going to happen much slower than you think. I want you to know about, let me introduce Eroom's law. That's Moore's law backwards. Okay? And the billions of dollars, the numbers of new FDA-approved drugs per US $1 billion of R&D has halved every 9 years since 1950. We love the lawyers, don't we? And we love keeping things, you know, on the up and up. And so that just means the cost of all this stuff just gets higher and higher. So changing humans, don't be looking for those, you know, memory drugs, things that can let you sleep, you know, 100 hours without having a psychotic break. You know, modafinil, that one, it doesn't work. It makes you psychotic. But all that stuff, it doesn't work. We'd love to find something better, but guess what? Evolution has already figured out some pretty good stuff. And so the human space, all the acceleration is going to happen on the digital side. So this book, The Creative Destruction of Medicine, is exciting. It's about how patients are getting together and sharing their stuff and kind of figuring out their own solutions. And finding these evidence-based systems. They can get into a group net. You know, Weight Watchers is cool today. Imagine a Weight Watchers or an Alcoholics Anonymous where you're tied in tightly with all those other people. And you're constantly you get that ping. You know, your person, you hit your little red button, the person pops in and they have you to chew some gum or do whatever your little hack is that's going to get you over a little hump. That's just a different world, man. How are we going to get rid of illicit drugs? I want to see if I can flip your cap here with this one. Okay? That's a Dexcom glucose monitor. There's also implantable insulin pumps. Anyone ever seen those? Yeah. So we can already see that people are going to be able to have these little implantable sensors that are going to tell you exactly how much illicit drug you're on. And they tell your physician that because you put it in yourself because you want your physician to help you and to know this. Well, guess what? As soon as those, or you only want your group to know it in your group net. You don't make it available to the physician at first, right? It's just your other group of radical self-improvers. Put your little chips in and you're all like chipped up and you're talking to each other and, oh man, I relapsed again today. What can I do, right? Guess what? Once those things exist, some states that are very seriously socially liberal, like say Netherlands or Denmark, what are they going to do? Yeah, free drugs for everybody as long as you got your little chip. So then we can know what you're on and we can, pick your physician, they'll try and help you taper it and monitor it, right? And they'll give methadone substitution, things like that. Oh, I relapsed. Oh, bummer. It's okay. Still go to your dispensary and get it for free. Why are they going to give it out for free? Because it cuts out an $800 billion a year criminal industry that we cannot cut out any other way. Because those drugs will squirt 20 times more dopamine than you get in an orgasm in half the time. There's no way you're going to cut that out. You just got to cut it into the network. Isn't that interesting? That's addiction medicine. Future addiction medicine is really exciting. Economic technologies. All right, we're just a little over, but notice we're almost done. So, Revolutionary Wealth, Reinventing Fire, and The Great Game of Business are excellent books on how we're going to see just tremendous more technical productivity. That little chart over there is GDP per capita in Western Europe. Over 1,000 years. Do you see any depressions on that? Oh my gosh. Look at that over 1,000-year scale. It just looks like a hockey puck. A hockey stick, sorry. And where's the knee of the curve? What year? When was the Industrial Revolution? 1850s, baby. Look at that shift. It's a state shift. It's going almost vertical. Why? Because all the money, the stuff people are making today, like Sony or Disney, where do they make money? They just make another virtual product and they just pump the electrons out on the little, pipes and you just click the little button and more money's made. Cha-ching! It's gotten virtual. It's dematerializing. That's why this thing's going to keep going, rocketing like this. Well, certainly the rich people are going to figure out ways to capture the money. They can create these little shell games like they did, leading up to 2008, and they're going to capture a whole lot of the money on the way up. We're going to get the political technology next slide. Okay. But that doesn't mean there isn't more wealth. They've captured massive amounts of wealth. And this book by Toffler, Revolutionary Wealth, Toffler, remember him? Future Shock, 1970? Oh, yeah. Fantastic book. There's going to be revolutionary wealth going forward. The question is, how much are we going to let the big boys capture? And how much are we going to say, no, sorry, redistribute back to me, please. Or, sorry, no, give me real fair competition, please. I want entrepreneurship, and I want real education, and I want the ability to make money myself. Those are all interesting choices. Each country's going to make a different different choice. And The Great Game of Business is the best book for, it's almost employee ownership company. It's the closest thing. It's so radically democratic. It's not quite a workers' cooperative, but of course this is the United States of America, red-blooded, baby. And Jack Stack wrote this book, and it's been around for 20 years, and it is the best book on worker participation and having everybody understand the balance sheets and having going out really simple one-page balance sheets every 6 months, and everybody has an interest. Every worker has a share, and the difference between the CEO and the lowest paid. Let's look at the bottom of this slide. 10x in a lot of these Scandinavian countries. That's about it. 10, 15 times difference. If you buy clothes at the Gap, is there something on the label that tells you what the difference is between the CEO pay and what the sweatshop girl is getting? Wouldn't you love to have that number on there, like a little FDA number? Well, guess what? Your digital twin is going to give you that number within 10 years. And then you're going to say, oh, sorry, I don't want that one. Okay? What is the difference between the richest and the poorest in the United States, typically, in these big public corporations? Guess what? That last number, 500. Now, certainly we need a certain amount for incentivizing innovation, right? These Scandinavian countries have figured out it's somewhere between 10 and 50. It's not 500. And we're going to figure that out too. And things get worse before they get better. These are called Kuznets curves. The environment gets worse until people have enough money, and then what do? They start cleaning up the environment. So these are inverse U-shaped curves. Some cool new technology comes in, that's the economic Kuznets curves. Who captures all the wealth of that new technology? The rich or the average person? Rich people! And then you go to a highly plutocratic state, the plutocratic democratic pendulum. It's highly hierarchical. And then people get even richer, and then what do the wealthy, even richer state finally do? They decide to redistribute. They create, progressive income tax in 1914, 40-hour work week, Social Security in the 1940s, and what happens with all that wealth? A whole bunch of it gets redistributed. So that's the political, economic pendulum, and it swings between those two. And these Kuznets curves are really worth understanding. Things get worse before they get better? Yes. But do they get better? Yeah. Things need development. All right, last slide. Security technologies. I told you David Brin's Transparent Society. And notice how we have the top-down predator surveillance and we have the bottom-up camera surveillance. And those two are in balance. And the more bottom-up tracking we have of things, the more, if you want an oxymoron today, here's a great phrase. Corporate transparency. Right? Screenwashing, isn't it? They just sell all this crap. Oh yeah, transparency initiative, better governance. No, you don't get to see what's going on. Except in like Jack Stack's company, right? These companies that build transparency, and of course a lot of these other democracies will have, few of the more progressive democracies will have transparency laws requiring more transparent reporting. Is GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles that we follow today? It used to be the most transparent. What about today? No, European GAP's way, or whatever it's called, is way more transparent. And we're 10 years behind, probably. It's falling further behind. Will we fix it? Absolutely we will. But we first have to decide. We have to recognize it. So the point I want to make is the transparency is going up, and if you as a leader want to see the future, simulate it. And that book, Wargaming for Leaders, is an excellent book. Okay? It's used for not just defense, but for corporations. What kind of things could take your company down? And you create these simulations. You have these simulation weekends with your teams, and you talk about these things, and then you surface these problems. And where are all those simulations going for national security and homeland security, where I do consulting? They're going to things like virtual heroes, where these guys go in these simulated cities, and they try and, and some people are what are called red teams, and they try and take the city down. And these guys get real creative, and they figure out ways to like poison the water supply, or tip over tall buildings, or what can we do? Let's figure something bad out. And then you go in, the blue team goes in and does an after-action review and says, oh yeah, that was actually a really good strategy. Well, how do we build more immunity into the city so that that can't happen? Make sure every building has automatic damping in it, so you couldn't put, explosives on the top and just, with a little remote control, just do a Verrazano Narrows, resonance and just tip the thing over. Well, you can't do that for just about every building today. And the ones that you can, you go in and you retrofit it. And why do you do it? Because somebody on your red team figured out that that was a problem. That's the power of simulations, you see. And you can do this for your organizations, you can do this for your countries, and it's very exciting. This book by Schwartz, The Art of the Long View, is a fantastic book to conclude on because Shell predicted the OPEC oil crisis and they predicted the fall of the Soviet Union both. And they didn't actually predict them, they just had scenarios on the shelf and policies ready to go in case it might happen. And why? Because they simulated the possibility. What if the Soviet Union fell? What would we do? Oh, we go in very quickly and we do these long-term natural gas contracts with Gazprom. That's exactly what they did, and they went from probably, 12th largest to, 8th largest by doing that. So The Art of the Long View is a fantastic book that tells you the value of taking the long view. I hope I've given you some inspiration for the positives that come with technology. There's a lot of perils ahead as well, but with foresight, I think we can solve it. Thank you.